You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. And the person who keeps telling you that you are, is the exact person this video is about. Gaslighting is not an argument. It's not a disagreement. It's a systematic psychological operation designed to make you distrust your own mind. And the worst part? By the time you realize it's happening, you've already started believing them. 6 stages. That's the complete playbook. Every gaslighter follows the same sequence. And once you see the pattern, they can never use it on you again. Stage 1, the golden setup. Before a gaslighter can destroy your reality, they first have to become your reality. This is the stage nobody talks about because it doesn't look like abuse. It looks like love. They mirror you perfectly. They like what you like. They value what you value. They finish your sentences. They say things like, "I've never met anyone who understands me like you do." And you believe it because it feels real. Because in that moment, it is real. That's what makes it dangerous. Psychologists call this idealization, the first phase of a narcissistic relationship cycle documented by researcher Craig Malkin at Harvard Medical School. The gaslighter creates an emotional baseline, a golden period so perfect that everything that follows will be measured against it. This baseline serves a critical function. When the gaslighting begins, when they start twisting your reality, you won't leave. Because your brain is addicted to the golden version. You'll tolerate the distortion because you keep waiting for that perfect person to come back. They weren't always like this. You don't know them like I do. It was so good in the beginning. That beginning was engineered. It was the setup. The foundation they built so they could demolish everything else on top of it. And here's why this should feel relatable. Think about any relationship, romantic, friendship, professional, that eventually turned toxic. Was there a golden period at the start? A period so good that you endured months or years of bad behavior because you kept hoping it would return? That wasn't a phase. That was stage 1 of the playbook. And stage 2 begins so subtly you won't even notice it's happening. Stage 2, micro-distortions. This is where gaslighting actually begins, but it's so small that calling it out feels ridiculous. "I never said that." But you remember them saying it clearly. That's not what happened. But you were there. You're remembering it wrong. But you know you're not. Each distortion is tiny. Individually, none of them seem worth fighting over. You think, maybe I did misremember. Maybe I am being sensitive. Maybe it's not a big deal. This is precisely the mechanism. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus spent decades studying memory manipulation at UC Irvine. Her research proved that external suggestion can literally rewrite your memory. When someone repeatedly tells you that your recollection is wrong, your brain doesn't just doubt the specific memory. It begins doubting your entire capacity to remember accurately. 1 micro-distortion does nothing. 10 create doubt. 100 create dependency. Because once you no longer trust your own memory, whose version of reality do you rely on? The gaslighter isn't lying randomly. They're systematically replacing your reality with their version, 1 small correction at a time. And each correction trains your brain to defer to them instead of yourself. You start second-guessing everything. Not just the relationship, everything. Your decisions, your perceptions, your judgment, your sanity. And that erosion of self-trust is exactly what stage 3 weaponizes. Stage 3, emotional disqualification. Now that you've started doubting your memory, the gaslighter targets something deeper. Your emotions. You're overreacting. You're too emotional. You're being dramatic. Nobody else has a problem with this, only you. This is not feedback. This is disqualification. They're not addressing your concern. They're disqualifying your right to have one. Psychologists call this emotional invalidation, and research from the University of Washington by Dr. Marcia Linehan found that chronic emotional invalidation is one of the strongest predictors of anxiety disorders, depression, and emotional dysregulation. When someone repeatedly tells you that your feelings are wrong, your brain eventually stops producing them normally. You become emotionally numb. Not calm, numb. There's a devastating difference. The gaslighter needs you emotionally numb. Because a numb person doesn't fight back. A numb person doesn't trust their own anger. A numb person feels something is wrong but can't locate the feeling clearly enough to act on it. And here's the most relatable part. You've experienced this in small doses your entire life. Every time someone said, "Calm down," when you were justifiably upset. Every time someone said, "You're too sensitive," when they crossed your boundary. Every time your legitimate emotion was treated as a malfunction rather than a message. Gaslighters don't invent this technique. They just use it with surgical precision, repeatedly, consistently, until you stop trusting the one compass that was trying to save you all along, your own feelings. Stage 4 is where the damage becomes structural. Stage 4, isolation engineering. By now your memory is unreliable. Your emotions are disqualified. You need external validation more than ever. Someone outside the relationship to tell you no, you're not crazy. The gaslighter knows this. And stage 4 eliminates that possibility. They don't say, stop seeing your friends. That would be obvious. Instead, they engineer isolation through reframing. Your sister always turns you against me. Your friends don't really care about you. I'm the only one who's honest with you. Every time you talk to your mom, you come back in a bad mood. Slowly, relationship by relationship, they reframe every external connection as a threat. Not to them, to you. They're protecting you from people who don't have your best interests at heart. Social psychologist Kipling Williams at Purdue University studied the neuroscience of social exclusion and found that isolation increases psychological dependency on whatever relationships remain. When your social network shrinks to one person, that person becomes your entire reality, your only mirror, your only source of truth. And when your only mirror is the person distorting your reality, the distortion becomes invisible. You have no comparison point, no outside perspective, no one to say, this isn't normal. This is why gaslighting victims often look back and say, I don't know how I didn't see it. They didn't see it because every mirror was removed except the one held by the person who was lying to them. Think about your own life right now. Is there someone who subtly discourages your other relationships? Someone who frames themselves as the only person who truly understands you? Someone whose presence in your life has coincided with the slow disappearance of others? That coincidence might not be a coincidence. And stage 5 locks everything into place permanently. Stage 5, the reality replacement. This is the final stage. The stage where the gaslighter's version of reality becomes your default operating system. You no longer argue. You no longer push back. You no longer even feel the distortion, because the distortion is now your normal. Their opinions are your opinions. Their moods dictate your moods. Their version of events is the only version you consider. You've been fully reprogrammed. Psychologist Robert Lifton described this process in his study of thought reform. He called it the psychology of totalism. When an individual's informational environment is completely controlled by a single source, their capacity for independent thought doesn't just decrease. It effectively shuts down. The brain adapts to the controlled environment the same way a prisoner adapts to a cell, not by fighting the walls but by forgetting that anything exists outside them. The gaslighter's final achievement is invisible. They don't need to lie anymore, because you've stopped questioning. They don't need to distort, because you've stopped perceiving the original reality. They don't need to isolate you, because you've stopped reaching out. You defend them to others. You blame yourself for every conflict. You apologize for things that were never your fault. And the most devastating symptom of all, you feel grateful. Grateful that they put up with you. Grateful that they stay despite how difficult you are. Grateful to the very person who systematically dismantled your ability to see them clearly. This is the final lock. Gratitude for your own destruction. And here's what I need you to understand. This doesn't only happen in romantic relationships. This happens with parents who gaslight children into believing their childhood was happy when it wasn't. This happens with bosses who gaslight employees into believing they're underperforming when they're not. This happens with friends who gaslight you into believing you're the problem in every conflict when you're not. The playbook is identical. Every single time. Distort their memory. Disqualify their emotions, remove their support system, replace their reality, and make them grateful for it. The only defense is awareness. And the single most important question you can ask yourself right now is this: is my version of reality my own? Or has someone been editing it without my permission? If that question made something shift inside you, trust that shift. That shift is your real mind, the one underneath the edits, trying to reach you. Let it. 5 stages. The golden setup. Micro-distortions, emotional disqualification, isolation engineering, reality replacement. 5 stages that have trapped millions of people. Not because they were weak but because these stages are designed to work on strong people. The stronger you are, the longer it takes. But the playbook is the same. If this video made you recognize even one of these stages operating in your life, that recognition is the crack in the wall. That crack is where the light gets in. And light is the one thing gaslighting cannot survive. Hit that like button if this shifted something inside you. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing the patterns the world hides in plain sight. And share this with someone who needs to hear, You're not crazy, you're not too sensitive, and you're not overreacting. You never were. See you in the next one.